Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Fearless and Free TV. So if you've been watching my channel for a while, you're going to notice, I decided to do something different. So I have one of my YouTube followers sent me an email a few days ago, and she said, I got to do something about that hair. So I was so delighted. She invited me to go see her salon, and she gave me a cut. And at first, I admit, I was really afraid of cutting my hair. And a friend of mine said to me about a week ago, you got to do something every day that you're afraid of. And I kind of laughed because that's part of what Fearless and Free is all about, right? Being fearless. So I went to see this woman who cut my hair for me, and she kept cutting and she kept cutting and she kept cutting, and I could feel myself getting a little scared. And you know, if you watch my last couple of episodes, I think she took about a foot off, and now I'm really, really enjoying it because I feel lighter, I feel more exuberant, I feel more playful. I feel like it took about 10 years off me, and so I'm actually really, really enjoying having the weight lifted off of this excess hair I didn't need, apparently. So if I look different, that's why. I'm really, really enjoying playing with this new cut. Now, before I bring in my guest for today, and my guest today is Stephanie Dawn. She is amazing. She's going to be talking to us about healing the appearance of cancer. And of course, we can't use any other word other than that. So she's going to be talking about her own experience in her own life, how she's managed to heal it. And I'm really excited to bring her on and share her story with you. I wanted to let all of you know, if you go to my website to pick up my free book and it's been giving you a hard time, I have been having technological issues with my website. So please don't get frustrated or think there's something, that there's an integrity issue, because that's not it. I'm just having a glitch in my website. So if you go there and you try to get your free book and it doesn't work, just shoot me an email and I will personally send you the book over email directly, and I'll make sure I get you taken care of. So don't freak out if you run into a glitch over there. And I think that's about it. Yeah. So now I'm going to bring Stephanie Dawn in to talk about the healing of the appearance of cancer. So here goes. Hi, Stephanie. It's so great to meet you. And I know you're a soul sister. So it's just lovely to meet you physically for the first time.
Likewise.
As I said off camera, I probably have seen you floating around Agape because I was there for years. So I was part of Agape Toastmasters.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And I was there every Saturday for about 10 years until Agape moved.
I would think about going to Toastmasters, and I never want to get up that early on a Saturday.
It was early.
Yeah, I was there every Sunday, though. Obviously, as a practitioner at Agape, I was there, for the congregation every Sunday. And there were tons of practitioner events that I was there for, too. And then I did all kinds of workshops at the center. But yeah, it was my spiritual home for 2 decades.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was there on Saturday mornings for Toastmasters because when I started Toastmasters, my kids were really small. They were 3 and 6. And Saturday morning was the only morning that was like my precious me time. Because my husband, as my husband, as I now call him, played volleyball on Sunday morning. That was his time. So like that Saturday morning was carved that out just for me. So it was really early in the morning. It was every Saturday at 8:30. It worked for me.
Yeah. Great.
Well, it was up already because my kids had me up at 6:30.
Mm-hmm. Perfect.
So, and it's been really great to see what's been happening with Agape. I mean, not necessarily where they've had to move to and make arrangements to figure out how to meet after they lost their center, but how you and I were talking a little bit before I started recording, how there are members of the spiritual community that are very much spiritually awake, but have been, the way that I refer to it is like having goggles on. It's like little teeny tiny tanning goggles that just have little circles in front. it's kind of like they're wearing tanning goggles. So they're not seeing the whole picture because the media has them swooned by what it is they're being bombarded with every single day. And it's really, really difficult to recognize because the media knows how to use what I call fear disguised as love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they sure do.
Beautiful, spiritual, loving light workers. A lot of them just can't see what's really going on because the media plays it so well.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I was really appreciating about Michael Beckwith, for those of you who are watching, an amazing spiritual teacher and the leader of the Agape International Spiritual Center. What he was saying the last time I watched him is he was telling his audience, look, don't believe everything you hear on TV. Do your own research, deep dive, and find out for yourself what's really going on in the world. Now, as a minister, he's not going to come out and tell people what he's telling people, think for yourselves, do your own research, don't believe the media. And he said that's the way his dad raised him, which was to not just believe everything you see on TV, but really be willing to do the work to find out for yourself what's really going on behind the scenes. And I love that he's telling that to his audience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. Yeah, when I think back to the foundations of The Science of Mind and Ernest Holmes and the book, The Science of Mind, and Ernest's parents in, turn of the century, 1900s, were raising him. And there was a local church that they would go to. And I guess there was all the fire and brimstone being coming from the preacher at the time. And his parents would walk all the boys home from church and would proceed to tell them that, that's not really how God works. So from an early age, Ernest's parents were encouraging him to really go deeper beyond what the preacher was saying, Mm-hmm. And so when you shared that story, it just made me think of Ernest Holmes, who I care, I just really, whenever I think of him, I just think so fondly of him because, he really brought the Science of Mind to Los Angeles and started his ministry in living rooms in LA. And I just always love that story. I always imagine, Victoria, that because it was the same with Paramahansa Yogananda. He brought it to California too. He brought Eastern philosophy to California. And I for many years, I envisioned writing a play when Holmes and Paramahansa and Yogananda met and the conversations they would have because I was so into both of them, Anyways, yeah.
Do you think they met? Or would that just be an interesting?
It's very possible because they were both in LA around, in the early 1910 to 1920 era. So it's quite possible. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so and it wasn't a big city back then. So it is possible they met. Mm-hmm. And I'm being reminded, as difficult as it is to live here, you and I both lived in the LA vicinity. Mm-hmm. I get reminded all the time, this is the city of angels.
Yes.
And that's the reason I'm here. Every time I think about leaving, Spirit reminds me, no, we brought you to the city of angels for a reason.
Yep.
And I think that's also why the contrast is so present here as well, trying to prevent the light from being so bright that's here. But the thing about Los Angeles is that, as we know, what starts here spreads around the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, I know that I'm here, as those of us that know Spirit brought us here, is to restore this angel frequency to the city.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful.
Yeah. And so it makes sense then that's why those two men came here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
That light here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and interestingly, Ernest Holmes, he never wanted to have a church. That was never his interest. It was the people that he was ministering to that decided to organize. He was very clear that he was offering a philosophy that needed to be applied. So, yeah, I always thought that was really interesting to learn about Ernest. He was a fascinating man, really interesting man. And his teachings are just so profound to me to this day, like just the teachings of the Science of Mind. Pick up any book by Ernest Holmes, and it's a beautiful book. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say he's ahead of his time, but not necessarily, because what he taught was the same thing Yeshua taught. It's the same thing Buddha taught. It's It's the same thing the spiritual masters have always taught.
Correct.
It gets maybe upgraded a little bit for what the human mind is capable of understanding, but the teachings are still the same.
Exactly. Yeah. When people would ask me, what do I believe? And I would talk with them about the science of mind. What most people don't know is that at the back of the book, The Science of Mind, there are many teachings of Jesus, and that Ernest Holmes refers to and unpacks really to help them make sense of what he believes Jesus was saying. Because interpretation is what spiritual texts are all about. And I just really appreciate the Ancient Wisdom New Thought movement and its ability to really take these teachings and give them a different flavor, a different color, a different nuance than what straight Bible, transcripts or interpretations would give. So that's what really appealed to me as I started deeply studying Ancient Wisdom, New Thought. It was just so open. It was just so open,
And then how is it applicable to today? Because spiritual concepts are applicable the same, 5,000 years ago as they are now. It's what's different is that we as a collective of humanity have grown in our ability to understand concepts. So how can we take that ancient wisdom with this new thought of how it applies now to what it is that we presently understand? And I love that too. I've actually always really enjoyed that concept of ancient wisdom and new thought, and how do they work together for where humanity presently is. And I always loved going to Agape for that reason, and the teachings of Ernest Holmes, and I love it. I didn't realize he didn't want to start a religion, because that's what it's mostly men. I mean, every once in a while it's a woman, but usually what happens is men get spiritually enlightened and then they suddenly think they have to start a church. Usually it's the feminine that says, no, I want to share this openly. We don't really need to organize it. It's the masculine mind that wants to plan and strategize and organize and all that, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that wasn't his intent, which is really interesting, because for me, that goes back to Jesus had no intention of starting a religion. Buddha had no intention of starting a religion. Muhammad had no intention of starting a religion. Those religions were actually created after the men weren't even here anymore.
Yep.
By other people.
Yeah. Yeah. I always love that story about him. But I think in going back to your question about how is it applicable today, so I don't think that any of us could have really, foreseen what was coming down the pike back in the fall of 2019 when I first left Los Angeles to move to Bainbridge Island, Washington State. I don't think that until I was really in it, was I able to really comprehend the depths to which I really needed to lean into all the tools, all my spiritual tools and my spiritual practices to really meet what was happening in our world. Because when we look back over the past 2 years, Victoria, what we see is a world in fear, a world steeped in fear, a world disconnected from God, a world without leadership in terms of health. They think that they've led us in regards to our health, but I would beg to differ.
Right, absolutely.
Get into that a little bit more in a moment here. But we see a world that is desperately in need of understanding the spiritual tenets that are part of, all the studies that I did at Agape and in the Science of Mind book. And to offer solace, to offer help around the power of the mind, because we know now the science is there in terms of how the mind can create illness, and so it's very clear. And in my case, the mind can create cancer, although I believe that in my case, it was definitely, it was more, for me, I think it was more about diet and the marriage that I was in terms of the cancer that I experienced. But I think it also connected to where I was living. I lived in a house that was riddled with mold. And I also had heavy metal poisoning. So all those things, coalesced to create the perfect storm of cancer diagnosis. So,
wow. So what type of cancer did you have?
Breast cancer, stage 3, tumors in both breasts.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but you didn't have to go through the whole typical protocol, or how did you navigate that?
I chose not to. So as Agape, prayer practitioner, I learned that fear does not have dominion over me. And I knew what to do in order to replace it with love. And to make my decisions from a place of love. So I did use the allopathic oncology world for diagnostics, but in terms of my healing path, I went full alternative. I don't really resonate with the fact that poisoning the body is going to create healing in the body. That just didn't make any sense to me at all.
It doesn't make sense, does it? And I never thought about it that way. But when you put it in that simple terms, it's like, yeah, that makes no sense at all.
It goes against what I know. So here's what I learned at Agape. I learned that our bodies are magnificent. I learned that our bodies are miraculous. I learned that to the degree that we understand that about our bodies is the degree to which we can experience that in the manifested world, in our physical experience and reality. And so I started applying everything that I knew to this experience of receiving a cancer diagnosis, right? Mm-hmm. And I also had people in my life that I was working with at the time, health coaches, who were like, Steph, if it comes back cancer, like, I got you. I know what to do. Mm-hmm. And so I started leaning into other people's knowledge of how to disappear the cancer, disappear the appearance of cancer. I started learning about the body of my own accord through them and through my own research. And I just started applying what I was learning. And then I also made the determination, Victoria, to go to Tijuana, Mexico, to a beautiful facility called Hope for Cancer, run by a gorgeous doctor named Dr. Antonio Jimenez, who is a New Jersey-born doctor who had to leave the United States in order to pursue his path of healing cancer naturally. So I went to his center for 3 weeks, and my goodness, I have never been treated so magnificently. I had 2 nurses with me each day, 1 in the morning, 1 in the evening. I was having 3 organic meals a day, delicious gourmet meals prepared for me every day. I was doing anti-cancer therapies all day, every day, 7 days a week, that were essentially all about detoxing my body. Heat therapy, light therapy, ozone therapy, energy, pulse electromagnetic frequency, like just so many different things. They just designed a protocol for me, and I just said yes. And intravenous vitamin C and B17 and, so many incredible experiences I had down there, hyperbaric oxygen, et cetera. And I'm still doing those things to a great deal today, but it's less so. I mean, that was like nonstop, and I couldn't, no one could afford to do that every single day. Nor do we really even understand that level of hitting cancer that hard here in this country. Right. We think we got to hit it hard with chemotherapy. And I'm like, yeah, no, thank you. But no, that is not my choice. It's not my healing path. And so for me, I used the science of mind a lot, meditation, affirmations, absolutely diet. I completely changed my lifestyle. I went from the belly of the beast in Los Angeles, the concrete jungle, to living in the forest up here and forest bathing on a daily basis, like getting into nature and breathing the forest biome, and just really feeling into nature's blessings daily. And, It just snowed here this morning. It was so beautiful.
Mm.
I do miss the heat of California. I lived there for as long as I did because I really love the sun. I'm a sun bunny. And so, but yeah, I just really started to design my days in a way that were all about my wellness. So just completely prioritize my wellness. And I was really blessed because I'd already had an online business. And that business, I just, I stepped away from it for about 6 months, and it's a residual income model. And, the money just kept coming in while I wasn't working. And then I stepped back into it in January of 2020, and I'm still doing it to this day. And so it was just beautiful that I already had that income. Like I didn't have to show up at a job, I didn't have to get back into I was a business coach, and I didn't have to get back into that business coaching. So I was able to just really design my days, in a way that really supported my wellness. And I feel very blessed that I was able to do that. I know that's not possible for everyone, but I'd created my life up until that point that I could do that.
Wow. So you didn't have to have any of the invasive procedures at all?
So the only invasive procedures that I agreed to have, if I went back in time, I think I might do it differently. But I did agree to having 3 biopsies in each breast, and then in my my lymph nodes under my right arm, because there is a whole school of thought that says if you biopsy a tumor, the cancer is going to get into the rest of the body. It comes out,
okay,
right? Because you're puncturing it. And so, I wish they told me what was going to happen with that biopsy, because I just kind of went in blind. And this is where you really need to be your own advocate when you're in the allopathic model. It's very different in the naturopathic model. They tell you everything before they do it to you. But in allopathy, they went into they biopsied the same place in my each breast 5 times to go in and take out cells, go 5 times. The exact same thing under my armpit too. And that was a horrendous experience. I really believe we really need to be looking at the practices that we're engaging in with the allopathy and the whole medical paradigm, because I don't believe I needed to biopsy under my lymph node. My lymph node now, whereas it might have been just a teeny little bit of cancer, now it's now a huge ball, because they put in a titanium marker, and it's now massive scar tissue. And I don't know how that's going to be affecting my lymphatic system over time, but they don't even think about that kind of thing. They just they don't really look at the body as a whole system. And this is the difference between allopathy and naturopathy. It's far more holistic. And so I think in retrospect, I would not have gotten those biopsies. But to answer your question, those were the only invasive things that I did. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you didn't have to have a mastectomy, which is wonderful, because that's the first thing people do, right? So they do all the different biopsies, probably because they make so much money off of each biopsy.
Yeah. Right. Oh yeah. I'm still paying my medical bills from 2019. It's grotesque. It's absolutely grotesque.
Yeah.
So, they charge you a lot of money, and the whole experience was gnarly. And, and my naturopath today, she believes that I was misdiagnosed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. She believes I was misdiagnosed. And she believes that I have fibrous breasts, and that fibrous breasts are, can oftentimes be misdiagnosed as cancer. And if you read the book Radical, there's a book out there called Radical, all about breast cancer in America. Misdiagnoses happen every day.
Wow.
Yeah. So women are cutting off their breasts. So let's just talk about mastectomy for a moment.
Yeah.
So I went to Hope for Cancer, and then I moved up here, and I got a doctor on the phone here because I was looking for my team up here, because I was moving up here, right? I didn't want to keep working with Cedars-Sinai in LA, and that's another story that I can share if you want me to. But I got on the phone with a naturopathic oncologist, okay, someone who has merged naturopathy with oncology. And we were chatting. She heard my story for 10 minutes. 10 minutes.
Mm.
And she recommended a double mastectomy. Yeah. And I was like, how can you do that? Like, who do you think you are? You know, here we are 2 years later. I have no further metastasis. I'm so glad I didn't cut off my breasts. Like, they don't even like talk about how that's going to impact a woman and her sensuality, her sexuality. You know, they just think, oh, well, we got to cut out the cancer. It's like, there is no guarantee that you're cutting out the cancer when you take off a woman's breast, because cancer is systemic. We need to be looking at the inner terrain of the body. We need to be looking at the outer terrain of a woman's life. We need to be looking at her relationships, how she's doing life, how she's interfacing with her work and her, you know, her mate and all that. And I was in shock that she said that to me. And I get off the phone with her and I just burst into tears because I wasn't exactly sure what that meant, double mastectomy. Like I believe it or not, I was like, maybe I was just like, I didn't want to know. Right. And so I started looking at the photos of double mastectomy. I just burst into tears.
No.
Yeah. And I was like, that is not my reality. I am not doing that. I'm not doing that. I love my body and I love my breasts. And I'm not afraid to say that. You know, my breasts fed 2 babies over a period of, 5 years. And, not to mention all the other wonderful things that we get to experience as women in regards to our breasts. And so it's like, and yet we just chop off women's breasts without just like, this is what she needs to do. And I'm like, no, ladies, we got to stop and really like check in with, does that really feel like the right thing for you to be doing to your body? Because I had a girlfriend who chopped off both her breasts and the cancer came back.
Yeah.
It came back in her bones and it came back in her lungs because the doctors that she was working with did not look at it, at her body as a whole body. They did not look at the inner terrain, the landscape of her blood and her, how she could be changing her diet and working with supplements, herbs, etc., to really work to heal her body. So I do believe that there is this belief that, if you choose the naturopathic route to, as the therapies for cancer, that you're going to die. Well, I'm here to say, like, no, you won't.
Right.
You are stronger than the appearance of cancer. That's my opinion. We are stronger than that. It's not a death sentence and we need not fear it. We need to take it seriously. And in some cases we need to act, urgently, depending on what the diagnosis is and how aggressive the cancers are. But like I said moments back, like, we are miraculous beings and we can do anything.
So in the cancer, as with other illnesses, is really our body trying to get our attention. It's like, look, something's off balance in your life. This is what's going on. And I've explained this to people before. The word dis-ease actually means dis-ease. It's an indication that our body is out of our natural state of ease. And so if we have those kind of diagnoses, it's our body's way of saying, hello, something's not right.
Yeah.
With this, the whole being, as you put it, mind, body, heart, and spirit. But the allopathic medical practitioners have no idea how to take a look at the entire being. They're just not taught that.
No, they don't. In fact, I was at Cedars-Sinai when all the diagnostics were going down, and I was going to the appointment desk to make an appointment, and there's a big old bowl of candy right there at the appointment desk, and I'm like, really?
Yeah, they can't even make that correlation between crap goes in, crap happens, right?
I couldn't believe my eyes. I just had to laugh. Yeah. So
well, it's funny. I used to work in the medical field, and I would go into doctors' offices every day because I sold medical supplies to the doctors, and the junk food And yeah, they just completely clueless. And the nurses were all overweight and eating, then they have no idea. If they do know, they're in complete denial of it. I'm like, how? I don't understand how anybody cannot know this. Because for me, I've known about this stuff for years. I'm baffled that there is anybody left in the world that doesn't know this.
Well, so I'm so glad you brought that up, because it's true. And the indoctrination is very real in our country. It is very real. We have all been very good patients. We have all received the message that nobody can help us heal unless they are an allopathic medical doctor. And if you claim to do that and you're not in the allopathic world, you know, our legal system is like, it's all about allopathy, right? So, so my curiosity, Victoria, when I think it was even before I found out that I had the cancer diagnosis, I started researching, because that's me. And I found an amazing video on YouTube called Cancer, the Forbidden Cures. It's like 90 minutes, I think. And it's super scratchy, old production quality, but it is so good. And I started watching and learning and researching. And one of the things that I learned about, which I'm sure your followers are going to find fascinating, you might know already, I don't know. In 1910, the Rockefeller and the Carnegie families sent two brothers, the Flexner brothers, out across the United States to go to naturopathic schools, homeopathic schools, chiropractic schools, and take them down.
Wow.
Oh, yes. Find chinks in the armor, you know, or just like things that were wrong with those schools. Okay. And they created the Flexner Report of 1910. And so I'd really love for all your followers to like go and research the Flexner Report, because it's all in there and we can see when things change. Because what the Rockefellers and the Carnegies wanted was they wanted their own medical institutions with their own drugs.
Yeah, and I knew that Rockefeller was involved with the whole medical industry as it presently is. I've known about that, and how he created all of these medicines from his discoveries in oil. So I had no idea how much, until a few years ago, how much crude oil, the black stuff that comes up out of the earth, is put on our skin, and it's put in our food, and it's put in our bodies, and it's plastic. We eat with it, we wear it, we sleep on it, we drive in it. I don't think people realize plastic actually comes from that. When people are complaining about what a disaster plastic is, it comes from that. Yeah. And all these medications, the entire the chemical industry, as I call it, the chemistry companies, it's all from that. So yeah. And so it all goes back to Rockefeller and his oil.
There you go. That's it right there. So then I started really recognizing immediately, because I'm deeply intuitive, that the whole cancer business here in the United States and globally, it's a business. It is a business. And it's one
of the largest economic businesses in the world. And if they were to actually cure it, it would be economically devastating. Yeah, that's one of the reasons they don't actually ever want to find a cure for it.
No, exactly. No. And so then I started doing more research in the last couple of years with Ty and Charlene Bollinger. You might know of them.
Yeah, the name's familiar.
Yeah. So they have The Truth About Cancer. They lost 5 members of their family to cancer, and they were devastated. Parents, grandparents, aunts and uncles, and they started doing their own research. And so they have several beautiful docuseries that I'm a huge fan of. And they have this one called Eastern Medicine. And this one fascinated me, because these Eastern doctors were talking about how in the United States, they practice medical terrorism. And I was like, what? Like, I was just jaw dropped to hear someone say that, right?
Right.
And so I had to replay it over multiple times, because here's how he unpacked it. He goes, they make you pay hundreds of thousands of dollars a month for insurance.
Mm-hmm.
They make you pay hundreds of thousands of dollars a month for specialists. And they make you pay hundreds of thousands of dollars a month for their medicine.
Right.
And all of a sudden, my eyes were open. And I was like, oh, he's right. Whereas these Eastern medical doctors are helping people heal their cancer or the appearance of cancer in their body with, you know, pennies on the dollar.
Right.
For herbal medicines and what have you. So it was very eye-opening for me. And in that same documentary, I've seen people who said that they healed the appearance of cancer with water fasting, which I've done, by the way, a month-long water fast last year. And they've done it with a keto diet, and they've done it with veganism, you know, so cancer is very unique to the person that has that diagnosis, and it's not a one size fits all. And if anyone tells you that they can heal your cancer, they're lying. You know?
Absolutely, because every body is different. Right.
Yeah. So you know, I'm ever the educator, Victoria, because when I learn stuff, I want to share it. And I've just been that way for a really long time. So I made the decision this time last year, actually. I was like, I want to help women who are met with a diagnosis like I was, not have to put all that time and energy into the research, and sort of like condense everything that I'd found into a program. So that's what I did. I launched a program in October, which is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, actually. And just to really help women understand that, first of all, you have time. You don't have to go ahead and take the doctor's orders and go and get chemotherapy yesterday, which is what my Western allopathic oncologist wanted me to do. I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that. You have time. And so I made it just 4 weeks long so that people can do that deeper dive on their own time before they make a determination about what is the way forward for them.
Absolutely.
They have so many options. Women have so many options, and I wanted them to know that, because when you're met with an oncologist, they're not going to give you any options. They're going to tell you, this is the chemo you should do, and this is how much it's going to cost, and that's what you got to do.
Yeah. And chemo is awful stuff. So my mom transitioned out about 21 years ago, actually, from cancer. And one of her last words were, tell every person you know not to take chemo.
Wow.
That was like her dying promise.
Oh my gosh.
Because that is what it did to her body. The cancer never grew any bigger than the size of a lemon. The chemo is what killed her.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm so sorry.
And that's what happens to people. And they have no idea that. Yeah. And I have talked to a lot of other people who have said the same thing, because it just wreaks havoc, and the body is never, ever the same.
Well, so I say that to people. I say, because people will say, yeah, my mother, my aunt, my sister, they died of breast cancer. I'm like, did they? Or did they die of the chemotherapy?
Yeah.
Or did they die of the treatment rather?
Right.
Because chemotherapy. So if we know that cutting off a woman's breast is going to affect her sensuality, and that's a really important part of who she is.
Right.
Do we really want to do that? Like, are we really looking at the person as a whole being? So I just feel like, here's what I'd like to see, because I really don't want to malign allopathy. All right. Even though I personally am divorced from it right now, that's just my own personal path. But I do believe there are really good points to allopathy, and I do believe there are amazing
Absolutely.
doctors out there. I truly do. But I also believe, and this is my visionary self speaking, that the hospitals of the future will be a blend of all of it.
Mm-hmm.
There will be Chinese medicine. There will be Ayurvedic medicine. There will be allopathic medicine. There will be light medicine. There will be spiritual, whatever someone needs spiritually, spiritual
Yeah,
counseling.
like the spiritual psychology. Yeah.
Thank you. Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, I did that for so many years as a spiritual counselor, right? Like, I truly believe that all of these things can help, and that we're really doing humanity a disservice if we don't factor all of that in to the realm of healing.
Absolutely. And I have exactly the same vision where people will actually go to these wellness centers. And that is the entire focus, is these wellness centers. And they will get, and that in every one of those practitioners will basically put together a treatment plan for a patient when they come in. Okay, you need the spiritual counseling to work with, right? So the whole body, mind, body, heart, and spirit are all being treated at the same time.
Yeah.
And the allopathic is really, really important. If you have a broken leg, going to an allopathic doctor to have it set and have a cast put on, you got to have a doctor that knows how to do that.
Yep.
And if you don't, you could walk around for 6 months with a leg that's half broken and never heals properly. Like, you could crush your foot and still maybe walk around with a broken foot. But if you don't get it, it's not going to heal properly if you don't have it set correctly. So the allopathic doctor is very important, but let's not make that. It's so funny because I hear people say, my doctor healed me. I'm like, well, technically the doctor didn't heal you. The doctor created an environment for the body to heal itself. Our bodies are so intelligent. Our bodies can heal themselves. The doctors just create an environment for the body to heal itself.
Well, exactly. And I think this is kind of what I feel like allopathy has kind of hijacked people's own ability to understand that their bodies can heal themselves. They think, we got to give it all up to them. And it's wrong. It's not true. And we've got a ways to go as a humanity.
Yeah. But I think more and more people are starting to grasp that. It's been really interesting the last 2 years to see how many people are having an awakening. And it's not just, and we've talked about the Great Awakening, and those of us, I know we've been talking about this Great Awakening that's coming. We were talking about this 15 years ago. There's a Great Awakening coming, and we're in it right now. And people are waking up mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically.
Yeah.
And starting to see how the whole being works together. And I know you've used these terms before, the holistic healing with a WH, right? WHOL, holistic healing, and that we are all holy beings. Really learning to understand that to be in this world the way we all desire to be here, which is this beautiful, loving, peaceful, peace on earth. Peace on earth is possible when we all find it within ourselves. And one of the things to find that peace within ourselves is to understand that we are all that, the whole being, mind, body, heart, and spirit. We have to stop seeing them as separate entities. Yeah. And treat the whole being. And the old style of medicine just doesn't do that.
No, it does not. Yeah. So I really appreciated Hope for Cancer's approach with me, because it was full spectrum healing completely. And they even had a doctor who did the whole mind body sessions with me, which I really appreciated. A lot of tears were cried down there because they recognized that was important, to get it out, whatever that was, right? Connected to why the cancer came, or what it means now about me going forward as a woman, etc. So so they're out there. You just have to search.
And I know that cancer treatment center, I tried to convince my mom to go and she wouldn't have anything to do with it. She was like, no, I'll stay here in Montana and go to my local doctor.
Oh my gosh.
Like, but Mom, we live here in Los Angeles. We'll take you to this center in San Diego. We'll pay for the entire thing. We even offered to pay for her to spend a month in Tijuana getting that treatment, and she just wouldn't have it. And that is how good that programming is.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Oh, yes. That doctor knows better than me. I mean, so Victoria, with my my work with Reverend Michael all those years ago when I was becoming a practitioner, what I loved that the Rev taught me was that we must defer to our own inner authority. You know, that was a core teaching of that I got from Reverend Michael. And I started working with that, in the birth world. I started a work called Sacred Birth Work about 18 years ago. And I was working with women to help them understand their own inner authority when it came to birth, and men too, you know, the fathers thought fathers to be as well. And that's exactly what I am working with within my program too. The Healing Cancer Naturally program is to help women defer to their own inner authority, because we give our authority away to a medical authority that we think knows better than we do. And therein lies the rub. Like, therein lies the problem. We want to be told what to do. Many people want to be told what to do. Like, look at what we've been living through these last 2 years. You know? Go ahead and get that medical jab, you know, go ahead and do all these things that I don't believe have anything to do with health personally. That they have a lot to do with profit. You know, they have a lot to do with profit. So I really feel like it's a lot to ask people to take responsibility for themselves. It's not for everybody.
Absolutely. And for a lot of people, it's too much work to have to think for themselves. So, and I've been talking about this with leadership. We have the capacity within each one of us to be the leaders of our own lives. But there are so many people who think they need to vote for somebody else to lead them, because they don't want to have to sit and actually learn how to make those conscious choices for themselves. And as you were saying with the whole medical, all of that, it's like, well, it's just easier to ask somebody else to fix my problems.
Yeah. Or let me take a pill that'll handle it. And it's like, no, it requires more than just taking a pill, you know, or chemo or even radiation, you know, all those things. What do we say? Cut, poison, and burn. Poison and burn. You do not need to cut, poison, and burn your way to health. You know, like
and you can't actually.
No,
you can't, because we have to get to the root cause, and that's what the allopathic medicine isn't doing. They're treating the symptoms rather than the cause.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, when I went to Tijuana to Hope for Cancer, that was my first hope, right? For many people, it was their last hope. Like, they'd already done the allopathic route. They'd already done the mastectomy and the chemotherapy and the radiation and all that. And their immune system was shot.
Yeah.
And they came to Tijuana, you know, with the desire to live, and they couldn't turn it around. So that first year was really hard for me, because many people that I'd met there passed on.
Yeah.
That was hard. But I never, at any point, did I ever think that I was going to be one of them. I mean, eventually.
But the only guarantee in life is that eventually life comes to an end. Right?
Yeah,
Nobody gets to bypass that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I felt like, you know, I just, at no point did I ever identify with the fact that cancer was going to get me. I just didn't. I still don't to this day. I'm like, I'm not going to die of cancer. I'm very clear about it.
Yeah.
And I think that the reason why I'm so clear is because I'm in control here. And I'm not in control by myself. It's me and God together.
Right.
You know? And so, and God talks to me all the time, and I listen, like I'm open at the top, as Ernest Holmes would say. I listen and I do what I'm being guided to do. And so I think that's This one woman one day when I was teaching one of my free classes, she was like, why you, Stephanie? Like, how did you know? And I said, well, because I've been working with my thoughts and my life for all these decades, so I knew not to take whatever somebody else was saying to me as the law, because the only thing that's true is God's law. That's the only thing that's true. Everything else is man's law, and God's law trumps man's law always, So I'm grateful that I have that background and I could apply it to the appearance of cancer in my body.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And how amazing that you were able to do that, and that you're here now to be able to help other people through it. Because I imagine that getting that diagnosis, I don't even want to imagine what it's like to get that diagnosis, because I don't even want to energize the imagination of it.
Yeah.
Right.
Good thought. Yeah. Good thought. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And like you said, use the allopathic medicine as the last resort rather than the first resort. So if we flip it and do what the body naturally does, the rhythm of nature with our body. Mm-hmm. And if that doesn't work, then go over here. Mm-hmm. But if we're going over here and then destroying the immune system and then trying to repair it naturally when it's beyond repair, that's the issue.
Yep. So. Yeah. I mean, the first thing that I would say to someone who's watching today, who maybe doesn't have the money to go to Tijuana, let's just say, the first thing to do is start intermittent fasting, straight up. Because what happens with intermittent fasting is the body goes into a high state of ketosis, which is fat burning, and then it goes into a high state of autophagy, which is what you want. It's when the good cells eat the bad cells, like little Pac-Man, right? Mm. And we want the good cells to eat the tumor cells, the cancer cells. So intermittent fasting, number one. Number two would be fasting, like water fasting, like not eating for, and I don't necessarily want to encourage people to do this on their own. I think it is really important to do it with someone, and there are people out there that will help you. I went to a wellness center in Costa Rica last year called Tanglewood Wellness Center, and I went for a 21-day water fast and a 1-week refeeding of fruit, and it was the most profound experience. I got to learn that the body doesn't really need food to live. And I know that might sound really weird for me to say, but it really doesn't. And for me specifically, like I had reserves, and I still do. I still have reserves, and I'm at a decent weight. But the body can live for many days with what the body has in it, and you might lose a little bit of muscle, but it'll the fat will be utilized. But so when you go into a longer state water fast, or even a fruit fast would be good, where you're just eating fruit that's highly astringent, that just starts to clear out all the toxins, because we live in such a toxic society. It's so toxic. And most people are like, what? There's toxins in my food? And I'm like, yes, there is. When I first came on, you're like radical detox goddess. So I didn't call myself that. One of my colleagues called me that, and I was like, I'll take it.
Yeah. I love that.
I have learned so much about how to detox, because 6 years ago, I was like, don't talk to me about cleansing. Like, I just really was all about my food addictions. Like, I was just in a rut, and I did not want to change anything. And wow, it's just like night and day now in terms of what I've done to cleanse my body. And so now I love holding people's hands to help them cleanse. Because, there can be detox symptoms that don't feel so great. And I know what they are, and I can hold their hand while they're going through these symptoms to help them understand what's safe and what's not, Right. So, and I've had so many people hold my hand while I've gone through that, So there's so many things we can do before we lay out the big cash for chemo, or even some of these alternative cancer centers. Like, I just think that there's so many options that don't cost a lot of money that we need to be looking at those things, but that's not what you're going to see here in the United States of America. No one's going to be, what I have to say is not super popular. It's
we got to take our destiny into our own hands ultimately. Yeah,
we do. And starting with our food and our diet that's numero uno right there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right there. So eating a clean diet as best as we can, eating a diet free of herbicides and pesticides, eating only organic as best as we can, drinking pure water. We really have to start there. It's super foundational. So I cover all that in my program. I cover making hard choices around your lifestyle. And I cover about how to cleanse. And I cover like, what's the next step? Like, do you want to go to Germany? Do you want to go to Turkey? Do you want to go to Malaysia? There's places all over the world that you can go to heal your body of the appearance of cancer. And so, or you can do like a merging of both. If you're really feeling called to do the chemo path, like I want to hold that allopathy is changing every day,
Right.
and drugs are changing every day, and our understanding of how to use drugs. It's not, synthetic medicine is not my chosen path, but it
Right.
might be for someone else, and I think there can be this confluence of therapies that can help people to heal their bodies.
Right. Yeah. And it isn't an either or, for sure. Yeah.
No, it's really not. Again, my interest is defer to your own inner authority, talk to God, like get the urging, that inner urging from God about what is the way forward, and learn to listen. Learn to listen. I think that's what all my years of spiritual practitionering did for me, was it really helped me listen to when spirit was talking to me, and then to take action based on what I was hearing.
Yeah. What's best for you?
Yeah.
So how do people reach you? What's the best way for them to?
My website's the best way, www.stephaniedon.com.
Okay.
That's the best way. And I do have some blogs. There's one blog called Everything I've Done to Heal Cancer in My Body. And so I think the list might blow some people away, but I want to live, you know? I want to live. And there's many people who thought that I walked down this path because I didn't want to live, but no, just the opposite is true. I want to live, and I want to live on my terms. I want to live. Lifestyle is really important to me. And I want to live from my own inner authority. And yeah. And so there's a few blogs there about my journey. In addition to learning more about the program it's for women mainly, but men probably would get something out of it too.
Yeah. Because the treatment's the same, right? And I have male friends who have healed the appearance of cancer in their own bodies.
Beautiful.
And,
I do too.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that it is possible to do that.
Completely. Yeah. Prostate cancer. I have a friend who's just hitting it hard, and he's still alive and playing music to this day. He's an amazing musician. And he's like, I'm with you 100%. I'm doing the exact same thing,
Yep. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being here and for sharing your journey and your story and your experiences and the difference that you're making in the world, and really helping other people through this as well. Because there will come a time, I really believe there will become a time when this will no longer be an issue in the human experience, when enough of us understand, one, where it came from, and two, how to treat it, and three, how to not pass it forward.
Exactly. Thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor to be able to share my journey, and may it be of benefit to those who are watching us.
Thank you so much. And for all of you who are watching, as always, remember to hold your light so high others can't help but see their own light. Stephanie Don is a perfect example of that. And as always, get bold, be fearless, and live free.